Welcome everybody to another brand new episode of It's My Wrestling Podcast, Indie Wrestling Spotlight, the brand new series where I like to shine a little bit of a light on all the really hard-working independent talent that probably aren't on your radar nearly as much as they should be. I think this is my fourth or fifth one now. I'm really enjoying doing these, and today I have the absolute pleasure of interviewing the man who stands at 6'12" and weighs 15% of a metric ton. He's of course the one and only Big Trouble Ben Bishop. Ben, thank you so much for giving me your time, my friend. How are things?
I'm doing great. You got it right. Usually we have to redo these intros on podcasts. People just get it wrong and they mess it up or they don't remember what it is. 6'12", 15% of a metric ton. But you hit the intro. We're already off to a good start.
Exactly.
Love it. Let's keep it rolling in the right direction.
Man, I do my research, and I'm sitting here
Love it. I
waiting.
love it.
I wait for guests to come in, and I'm like, right, rinse and repeat, try it again, try it again, try it again. And I know one day I'm gonna just like practice it too much, and
Yeah.
then just get it completely
You
wrong.
get completely wrong. It's all right. No, you already starting bat. You're batting 1,000 already. So good to
Awesome.
go.
Right, man, let's get into it. Like I said, thank you so much for giving me your time. I really appreciate it. I don't like to start interviews off with like the same questions, like who was your favorite wrestler growing up or anything like that. I think not to be disrespectful to other podcasts, but I think we know all of those answers by
Yeah.
now. So I wanted to go a little bit different, sort of similar, but I wanted to know, as an independent wrestler, what was your your pin drop moment? When was it that you were like, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is what I have to do. I'm going to be a wrestler. Was there a particular match, a moment, an event, or?
It's funny because my story is a little different because I was a basketball player growing up. I played in college. I played a little bit of Australian football. And I just went randomly one day. I was just sitting at home with a Friday, nothing to do, and I saw that there was a show going on, Adrenaline Championship Wrestling. It was going on here in right around Baltimore, Maryland. So I decided, hey, you know what? I got nothing else going on. Why not just check it out? And I did, showed up, just kind of sat in the back, enjoyed the show. I've always been a fan of wrestling my whole life. And eventually, Dwayne Gill, that most people know him as Gillberg, came up to me. And he's like, hey, man, you a worker? It's like, no, I have a job. And he's like, no, that's not what I mean. I didn't know the term worker yet.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, man, you got to be a wrestler. Let me introduce you to Jimmy. I was like, I don't know who Jimmy is. It ended up being James Ellsworth. So he introduced me to James Ellsworth. And since then, kind of just the next day I was training, off and running, helping out at shows, getting in the ring. And then, yeah, just since then, that was September 2009, and kind of been rolling ever since.
That's pretty random, isn't it? Just like go to a show, like, hey man, are you a wrestler? No, I'm not a wrestler. Oh, okay, I'm a professional wrestler. Wrestled for WWF, WWE. Do you want to be a wrestler?
Yeah.
That's pretty out there. You don't really hear stories like that. It's normally like, oh, I went to wrestling school. I was desperate to be a wrestler, but it literally just like fell into your lap, didn't it? Did you?
Yeah, no, it kind of did. Yeah, just I wasn't. I've always wanted to be a wrestler. I've always said like I really want to get into professional wrestling. I just didn't know how to. It's kind of hard to find ways to do it or the right people to go to. And I wanted to link up with James Ellsworth because he made it to WWE. He's great, like great connections. He knows what he's talking about. Trained by Axel Rotten, which everybody says one of the greatest wrestling minds. Obviously, rest in peace to Axel Rotten. But so that was, I was like, you know what, why not give this a shot? It would have been stupid for me not to at least try. Because people forever has always told me like, you should get into wrestling. You should get into wrestling. I was like, yeah, whatever. I don't know. So I stopped playing the woulda, coulda, shoulda game, and I was just like, you know what, now is the time. If there's going to be any time, it's going to be now, and I can't really waste any more time with it.
No, not when you've got an opportunity like that. Like you say, it's
Yeah,
literally presented itself to. I mean,
exactly.
let's be honest. Not two of the all-time greats or anything, but still two guys who've got great minds for the business, and especially like the independent wrestling side of the business as well. So, like, did you have any concerns, any like misgivings of getting into it, or like, well, when you took your first bump, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had my fair share of injuries in college playing basketball. So I was kind of like, yeah, I don't know if my body can take it, and especially taking the first bump. I took the bump and I actually like hit my head on the mat, and Ellsworth just said, "Well, that's not how you do it." So now you know how not to do it. So, because then I immediately like saw stars and I'm like, oh man, this isn't as forgiving as I thought it would be. But over time, you take more bumps, you build up the calluses in your mind, not just the physical calluses, the mental calluses, and you just keep doing it, and repetition happens, and it just becomes second nature. I mean, we're human beings aren't meant to throw themselves onto a mat voluntarily, so it's something you need to really just learn. But with an athletic background, I was able to learn it pretty quick, and the learning curve wasn't as high as other people have, because I know how to move my body in space. I know how to, I'm coordinated, and some people just want to be wrestlers aren't, and they don't know how to move, and they don't know how to what in certain like how to hinge the hips, move, throw yourself backward, and land in a safe place that you're not going to hurt yourself or hurt anybody else.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I've had people on the show just on this new series, the independent wrestling series, recently, who've, like, you mentioned before that you were already working, like you had a full-time regular job, let's say, like a day job. So when you started to make the transition into wrestling, did you sort of just go all out? Was it just all wrestling, or did you still have to, like, is it hard to have that balance? Because I know a lot of indie wrestlers, they want to go full time, but obviously, opportunities don't always
Yeah.
come for that to happen, do they?
No, I mean, right now, unless you're a name in independent you were a name before on TV, and I'm not afraid to say it. I think it's almost near impossible to make a living off of independent wrestling if you weren't already in the WWE or AEW or Impact or whatever it may be. It's very difficult. I don't think many people can just do that solely without any other source of income. Fortunately, I have had my full-time job the whole time I've been a wrestler. I work remotely, regular hours, 9 to 5, no weekends. So it works out great for me. And
Yeah.
they're actually really supportive of it. They're really supportive of my wrestling. A couple of my coworkers have come to some events. So yeah, no, so I can't ask for a better situation with work that coincides with trying to make it in professional wrestling.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it sounds like you got really lucky. Really.
I do, yeah, very fortunate, absolutely.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Have you ever been over to the UK? Have you ever wrestled over here?
I've never, that's why I want to do more podcasts like this, because I would love to get over there. I'd love to start traveling somewhere other than the United States. I've been to now, in 2 years, I think I've wrestled now in 13 or 14 states now. But I would love to, become international, take BTWB worldwide. Yeah.
Yeah, man, and well, I'm glad you mentioned WWE and AEW in there because I wanted to ask about AEW. Obviously,
Yeah.
that's a really good way of getting your name out there to other countries and to other people who might not have known you before. And obviously, you have wrestled for AEW. You made your
Yeah.
you had your against Bear Bronson.
Bear Bronson. Yeah. Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
there on
Yeah.
AEW Dark. So, like, what was that? How first of all, how did that come about? That experience, that opportunity.
Yeah. So I actually basically what happened is I ended up getting it through a few people. I got in contact with QT Marshall, sent him a few matches and a resume back in April. And he's definitely brutally honest. He'll say like, "Hey, you need to work on this, and this." Definitely, we could bring you in eventually for Dark. And I think he originally thought I was reaching out to him for like a job, but I was really just like, I know I got work to do. I'm looking to just get on Dark, get my name out there a little bit more. So he's like, yeah, we'll get you in eventually. So, a couple months pass. I sent him a few more matches. And then he just says, hey, would you be able to come down for a week? So, went down there, got put up in a hotel for a week. And was there for 2 Dark tapings and 2 Dynamites and 2 Dark Elevations. So I unfortunately, I was like, only got to work once. But it was a great experience. Bear Bronson is a hell of a wrestler, an even better guy, great guy. And he made it so he made the experience just so worthwhile, and made it so that it was just, it was like stress free. Obviously, you did a lot of anxiety. It's as soon as you step foot in the ring, it's like, oh man, it's go time. But everything, just the match, it felt great. And I got some great feedback afterward. The coach of the match was Billy Gunn. Someone I grew up watching. So it was really cool to hear some feedback from Billy. Obviously, he's a big guy too. He's a sneaky, very big guy. Nobody realizes how tall and how big he is until you see him in person. So he gave me some good feedback. And I got to meet Tony Khan. That was cool. I talked to Tony Khan for a good like 5 minutes. And he said he thought the match went really well too. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully, I get invited back on Dark. It's tough for a guy my stature for their guys to face a guy like me because it's just that, I'm 6 foot, we'll say 6'12", 6'12". I'm a damn near 7-footer, not quite, but almost. And just, I'm just so much bigger than everybody. And I was the biggest person in the locker room besides Billy Gunn. I'm a little taller than him, but he is a giant man. And so it's the optics. Just saying it, the optics are tough. So, just so much bigger. So we'll see what happens, down the road. And I'm just going to continue having fun with it, and just see where it takes me.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Like it's good to hear that you're not sort of like desperately trying to get back there. Like if it happens, it happens. That's
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I got a great. I'm not somebody. I always say this, Chris, about wrestling. I saw it on Twitter. Another wrestler mentioned it yesterday. I couldn't have agreed more. Wrestling is such an industry where there's so many ups and downs, and there's so many. Like when you have your biggest high, like, oh, I was on AEW Dark. I'm like, okay, I think I'm gonna get a bunch of people reaching out now because like, oh, I'm a tall guy. There's not many of us. I'm sure I'll get a bunch of great indies reaching out. And it's still, you still got to put in the work of like reaching out to all these indies, and you're not getting as many phone calls as you think. So you're on this high, and all of a sudden 2 weeks later, you like go back down to a low because you're like, I'm like not getting bookings, and it's hard. You think they'll start pouring in, but it's like, okay, I'm still having to, reach out. And you learn that. So there's a lot of peaks and valleys, and the way everyone, and I saw this on Twitter, it was actually shout out Jordan Blade, who's a great wrestler of herself. She's making a name for herself here on the East Coast and all over the country, really. She said it on Twitter. Someone asked her, like, how do you stay sane in wrestling? And she said, having a life outside of wrestling, not just putting all your eggs in the basket of professional wrestling, and that's all you're known as, and that's your whole identity. Fortunately, I have a good job. I'm a great wife, married, great friends. So I have a life outside of wrestling where I don't say like my whole life is professional wrestling. Because if it was, I would drive myself crazy. And I'll be the first to say it. Because it is a business that is just, it's a crazy business, and there's it's entertainment, right? It's show business. And there's, with show business, it can be, your highest of high can be followed up the next day with the lowest of a low. So you gotta just like stay plateaued the whole time and make sure that you're not getting yourself too excited or too down on yourself. And you got to have fun with it. We all started wrestling. Majority of people, I don't know, maybe nowadays people just do it because they think it's a quick buck, but majority of people wrestle because they loved it and they watched it growing up and they want to be part of it. And we got to remember that. I got to stop myself and be like, this is cool. Like 3 years ago, I would never thought I would have been doing this. And now, like, I'm driving to shows and I'm on shows with, some huge names, guys like, last week, like James Storm and Rhino and Ricky Morton, and it just guys that, like, Kevin Nash was at the last show, my favorite wrestler growing up. And I've met him a bunch of times, and he's been so very cool to me. So it's like, it's just so these like cool things that I'm like, I can't take for granted. I got to just, take a step back and be like, wow, this is cool, right? Even as much as it pisses me off a lot, it definitely is cool.
Yeah, I think like we're seeing a lot more wrestlers start to have like outside interest, aren't we? Even some of the other indie guys that I've had on. I had Grey Wolf Raventhorn on a few,
Okay. Yeah.
and he was telling me how he's got like a line of hot sauce coming up
Yeah.
soon. Like really, really random, really out there.
Yeah.
You see loads of wrestlers going on Twitch and things like that as well to have
Yeah.
that extra sort of like vehicle. I think to be honest, a lot of wrestling fans could do with something like that as well. They get so wrapped up in wrestling, and wrestling is their life. And I think that's, social media is a great thing, and it's also a bad thing, isn't it? It's
Exactly.
great for independent wrestlers. Obviously, it's a really good free way of getting your name out there. But
Mhm.
obviously, with the good
You
comes the
gotta
bad.
the biggest thing to remember, like I always use this metric in that I'm in like a group. So this is the example I always use with people. I'm in a group chat with 15 of my friends who are all like around the same age, give or take 1 or 2 years of me. All, similar job statuses and all that, coming up from similar backgrounds. So I'm using that as my sample size. I am the only one who is active on Twitter, and there's only two others in the whole group that actually have one, just use it to read. So I tell people that all the time, like, Twitter's not the be all end all of the whole population of the world. But a lot of people like to think that Twitter's about 5 to 7% of the population, if that.
Yeah.
So, people that take Twitter so incredibly serious, it's going to be your downfall, because it's not the majority of people. It's the vast minority of people who are on Twitter putting their opinions out there. And a lot of, and that's the nature of it. You might see on Twitter like this, somebody or something is so popular, and then all of a sudden, you're like, well, they're actually, in reality, they're not. It's Twitter. It's Twitter. Social media is just, it's a highlight reel. It's a highlight reel of people's life. It's not exactly the real life of somebody, especially Instagram. So I always say that you got to take Twitter and stuff like that and social media with a grain of salt. And that's anybody. It's not just wrestlers. That's everybody. Don't buy into Twitter hype, and also don't let yourself get down because of maybe somebody's getting more likes than you or has 500 more followers than you. And I'm not a perfect person. I could say I've definitely got caught up in it sometimes, and I got to tell myself, this is not, don't judge your own worth by what happens on social media, is what I try to tell people. Unfortunately, we're in the day and age where that does happen.
Yeah, and it's a shame that people are going to listen. People are going to hear what you've just said if they've watched this episode, and they'll be like, yeah, that's really good advice. And then they'll be straight back on Twitter begging for followers.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I love Twitter. It's my favorite social media platform. I enjoy it. I have fun. I try to have fun on it, and it's a good place to read opinions and get news. And I think everyone's opinion, for the most part, matters. But it's again, like a grain of salt. That's what you got to take it as, and that's the only. There's not there that, because that's what Twitter is. It is that the minute part of the population.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I couldn't agree more. I see it all day, every day. I really do. Without naming any names, I know people whose entire life is dedicated to getting a big following, and I'm like, these people aren't following you because they want to follow you. It's because you're asking them to follow you, like follow trains and things like that. And then people think that they're Twitter famous, Twitter celebrities, and I just sit there thinking, this is so tragic.
Yeah, exactly, and it happens too often, and it's not going anywhere. So that's one thing. It's like traffic. It's inevitable. And now the whole idea of Twitter being like, I'm famous on Twitter. I'm social media famous. I mean, it is it's our reality now. That's how people are gonna believe their own hype, and all power to them. If it works out for them, it works out for them. I'm not one to judge them, but if they want to, if that's how they believe, if that's how they rank their self-worth, by having more followers than somebody, then
more power to them.
Good luck.
Yeah. Good luck. Right, let's move away from all that negativity side of things. You've mentioned so many legends already just in this short amount of time. You've said Kevin Nash, guys like Ellsworth and Gillberg, Ricky Morton, someone I'd love to have on the show. A big fan of Morton. Shane Douglas, I know I saw as well on your social media at some point. I think it was. You've obviously, as you say, you've not been wrestling for particularly long. You got to mix it up with a lot of those guys quite early on. Like, this is like a who's who of wrestling past and some of wrestling greats. Like, I think, how should I word this? Who have you sort of taken the most away from? Would it be safe to say it's someone like Kevin Nash, because you've got a similar size
exactly.
and style?
Yeah, Kevin Nash gave me some good advice. As being a big guy in wrestling, it's just much different than majority of people who aren't my height and size. It's a different psychology when it comes to big guys. There's everything you need to do is different. So you can be in a wrestling school and being taught how to sell and how to do certain things, but when you're a big guy, not many people can teach it unless you're a big guy or you're very knowledgeable about it. So only a select few people can teach it. And that's nothing against anybody, because it is hard if you haven't been taught. And I'm still learning as a big guy how to learn more psychology in matches, not overselling for people and making sure everything looks as realistic as possible. So he gave me great advice. He's like, you gotta pick and choose when you're gonna take the big bumps, or make everything you do matter. Like, don't just bump for every Tom, Dick, and Harry out there. Don't do that. Like, because you're just gonna, you turn the dollar signs into cents as soon as you start doing that. Then everyone sees you, and they're like, yeah, you're just big for nothing, and you're doing all this type of stuff. And I'm not one to ever call. I don't want to like say that anybody in particular does that, but I see it, and I see big guys bumping a lot for smaller guys, and it takes away from the aura of a big guy, of a big man, a tall guy in wrestling, whatever it may be. And then people are just kind of like, oh, I'm just going to lump you in with everybody else, because what makes us different is our size, right? That's the attraction. When wrestling was at its height, the WWE, then the WWF and WCW, they had 12 to 15 guys over 6'7", 6'8".
Yeah.
So nowadays we don't see it as much. I'm not going to do like the sour grapes and be like, why, what the hell's going on? But the evidence is there. So so people like to see bigger guys. What are the boxing, what are the fights that always are the ones that sell the most, besides like the Mayweathers of the world, the heavyweights, like they want to see, people just want to see people who are different than them on stage. You don't want to go to a wrestling show and be like, look in the ring and be like, that I think that guy should be sitting next to me in the crowd. Like you don't want that. Nobody wants that. No one's paying money to see that. And then, wrestling, there needs to be all different types of, body sizes and tall, short, athletic builds, maybe guys that are more brawlers. Obviously Mick Foley made a great living. He's a legend for what he did. And there's guys like that. And there should be guys like that. But when everybody's like that, that's where that's where it comes into like that's the problem. And that might be why we're losing viewers.
Yeah, like as much as like some of those guys, most of those guys are my favorite wrestlers, like your Johnny Gargano's, Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, those quote unquote smaller guys. I get hyped when I see like a larger than life character, someone like Omos in WWE.
Yeah, exactly. He's enormous. Like he made me look short. Like I was back there at SmackDown, and then I'm happy and they're doing great by him right now.
Yeah,
he looks great. They're making sure his WrestleMania match was put together perfectly. That's how a giant should be booked. Not if he got in there and all of a sudden started bumping around for Woods and Kingston, it would have been like, okay, now he's just another guy.
Yeah,
But
he doesn't feel as giant anymore, does he?
No, yeah, you lose it. You didn't see Andre doing it. You didn't see Nash doing it. Yep. You didn't see these guys do this type of stuff. And I get it. You want to be giving in wrestling, and you want to make sure you're making your opponent look good. And some guys get wrapped up in that a lot. But again, we want to make this look as realistic as possible, and we don't want to be bumping around. Big guys shouldn't be bumping around like crazy for every single person. It just takes away. Like that's our draw. Like smaller guys have their speed and their high flying, and that's amazing. And the athleticism that they have, and big guys can be athletic too, obviously. But our draw is our height. That's what people are looking at. That's what people want to see. Like, oh my God, look at this guy. Look how big he is. I don't see this guy every day. Like, oh man, we're a circus act. That's what we are. We're a freak show, and people are coming to see it, and they want to see something different.
Yeah. Two of the main examples that stick out for me of when it works and when it should happen is like Rey Mysterio against the Big Show.
Yeah.
Or even against Batista, Rey Mysterio versus Batista as well. Like those guys didn't sell for everybody, but they sold for Rey because it meant something to the story.
And he's the best at making it make sense. He made everything he did in those matches, and people believe that Rey could win those matches because the way he told the story in the match and the way he built up to a bump or something. I think he built up to it, and then the bump meant something instead of, right off the bat, there's a lockup and Rey's shoulder tackles the Big Show and knocks him down and be like, okay, now it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, it'd be like losing his footing a bit more and a bit more and a bit more.
Yeah, like go to the leg, then all of a sudden comes from the top rope like a big crossbody, boom, take, oh my God, can he win? Can he do it? Or Big Show does something, runs into a post or messes up or something happens. And, now Rey gets there's so many ways to tell stories with the big guy and the little guy. The big guy doesn't always have to win. I'm not saying big guys need to always be winning every single match. It's not the case. But again, as long as it makes sense, that's the most important. As long as the storytelling, that's like the lost art in wrestling now, is that the storytelling, a lot of people don't take that into account when putting together a match. It's more about, I'm going to get this in, I'm going to get this move in, I want to get this move in, I want to get this move in. The last thing I'm thinking about when I'm putting together a match is when I'm going to get my moves in. Like, I don't care about the move. I want to figure out, okay, what's the story we're trying to tell? Who's the heel? Who's the face? What are we trying to get across to the audience? I was on a show recently, and there are some awesome athletes on the show, and they're doing crazy moves. This audience was not a typical wrestling audience. They weren't the smart mark crowd. They weren't the crowd that's going to pop for these big, awesome feats of athleticism. And these guys were doing great stuff. And I'm like, wow, but the crowd wasn't popping. They didn't know what to cheer for. So I went out, and I don't know if you've heard of him. He's making a name for himself right now, Savage Gentleman Victor Benjamin.
Yeah.
He was on AEW Dark recently, really making a name for himself. The guy looks like $1 million, looks like a wrestler. I was singing his praises all day, but we had a match, and he has the big gimmick with the peanut butter and all that. And, he only eats a special kind of peanut butter because he's a body guy and doesn't eat like the Jif and the Skippy. So I just made the whole match talking about, like, I'm the man of the people. I have the peanut butter. I have Jif. And I just got the whole crowd just chanting Jif. And then the whole match got them chanting Jif, peanut butter. And they loved it. And we didn't do anything in the match. We did the bare minimum, but we got the crowd into it, and we got them interested, and we told a story, and he was the obvious bad guy, and I was the good guy, the man of the people with the people's peanut butter and all that type of stuff. And it was easy. And we didn't have to do crazy feats of athleticism to get the people to like us. We just told a little story, and the people got into it for 10 minutes. And that's what is missing in wrestling. That's that type of stuff. The high flying, that's awesome. These guys are amazing, and there's a spot for that. However, right now in professional wrestling, the storytelling is the lost art.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, as a fan, someone who's never even got in the ring myself, but even just as a fan, I completely agree. Like, some of the names I just mentioned as some of my favourites, like Johnny Gargano. Yeah, we can do it all in the ring, but I gravitate towards people like that, and Kevin Owens, because of what they can do with a story. Like, their matches, you've got a distinctive beginning, middle, and end. Like, you can see what they're going to.
Like Gargano's matches with Cole, back in 2019, 2018, all those matches were great because there was a clear-cut good guy, a clear-cut bad guy, and every match, Cole's one of the best in the world. He's one of my favorites to watch. He's so good at, like, just the facial expressions and getting the right amount of heat on somebody, making sure the right hope spots are there. Just everything that he does has a purpose to it. Yeah. Where, and he does some of these, like, obviously the Panama Sunrise, and he does some amazing moves, but he all does it at the right time when it matters and it means something. And Gargano's the same way, and he had that clear baby face persona to him during those matches, and everybody knew it. Yeah. Look at the matches through the years that everybody loved, like the Rock and Roll Express versus the Midnight Express, just those type of match where, there's a clear cut heel, there's a clear cut baby faces, and the matches were put together and made sense, and there was always a story being told. And they sold out arenas for 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 seat arenas just on that alone. Yes. So there's something to be said for it, and I'm hoping that more, and I'm not one to say it too much. I'm only 2 years in, but like I've been taught by the right people, like the James Ellsworth, learning from Gillberg, Ruckus. I don't know if you've ever heard Ruckus, independent wrestling legend, who's a Baltimore guy. I've trained with him a few times, and even though he's known for a lot of his innovative spots that he's come up with, and he's one of the greatest independent wrestlers of all time, rightfully so, getting inducted into the Indie Wrestling Hall of Fame this year at GCW at the Hammerstein Ballroom. But he's another guy that, when we have matches, he's like, he always wants it to make sense. He's not saying to me, like, I want to get this in, I want to get this in, I want to get this in. He doesn't talk about that. He's like, look at you, you're different than everybody. Like, we're going to protect your size. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do that. So, like, it's just, learning from the right people, hearing the right people talk about it, the long car rides with guys like Ellsworth, and just hearing him discuss, like, why this doesn't make sense, why this makes sense, why this is good, why this is bad. And, that's all just like, I've just been a sponge, just like soaking that all in and learning the right way. Because again, I started at 29, I'm 31 now. I don't have a lot of time. If I'm going to make it, I want to make it in the next 5 years or so, but just up to the next level. So, I want to learn the right way. And I want to make sure that everything I'm doing is something that can be ready for potential being on like TV or being on in a mass company.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want to be known as the indie guy that can do the indie spots and, coming off being a 7-footer, doing like a 450 or something like that. Now I can't anyway, so I'm not going to ever do that. So don't think I will, but I don't want to be known as that guy. I want to be known as like a big guy that knows how to tell a story, knows how to work a camera, knows the way to put a match together. That's more important to me.
Yeah, of course, man. And like you say, no, it's definitely a dying art now. I meant to ask before when we were talking about your time in AEW, for that little bit of work you did there. I don't know, was the Big Show, had he already joined AEW?
Yeah. He was there. He was real busy. He did stop and talk to me for like a quick second. It was cool to meet him. We're pretty close to the same height, I would say. Many people thought he'd be like towering over me, but I think he's got me by a little bit. If not, I'm a little taller than him. I don't know. But a very nice guy. Really, really cool to just meet him. Everybody at AEW was really cool. I couldn't say one person was a jerk by any means. It is a really cool atmosphere back there. They do have like a family kind of atmosphere. Everyone just seems real laid back, and no one's like on edge or anything. So I really did enjoy my time there. And
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, it's a shame, obviously. You think of big men, you tend to think of Andre, you think of The Undertaker, Kane, Big Show, they're like the names that come to mind first. But it's just a shame you didn't get a chance to actually, like, take in any knowledge or work with Big Show.
Yeah. Well, hopefully in the future, I'd love to talk to him more. But I get it. He was really busy. He was running around the whole day, but he did stop for a second and talk to me for about like a minute or two. So it wasn't much, but I did appreciate. He took a little bit of time.
Yeah, man, of course. No, that's what I always get as well from guests who have even just had 5 minutes in AW. They all speak very, very highly of like the feeling and the atmosphere and the experience within the locker room. It does seem like it seems like a very honest place. So like you've gone there, you've done 5 or 6 matches or whatever it was you did, like on Dark, Elevation, Dynamite, those tapings, but it doesn't feel like I feel like if you went to WWE, obviously I might be completely wrong, but I feel like if you went to WWE and did those little bits of work, they'd probably just be like, oh, we'll be in touch. Whereas I think AEW, they come across like they'd be honest, like
they were
kind of, but they wouldn't
they all were. Billy Gunn, QT. They were all gave great constructive criticism and told me things I did right, things to work on, things to improve on. I did the WWE tryout back in February. They were great. Everybody there was very nice, very polite. Nobody was rude by any means, but it was just hey, do the stuff. Hey, you can maybe do this a little bit different. All right, yeah, we'll be in touch. And that was it. Like there was no, like as soon as like the sessions were over, they would like run out of the room, so we couldn't ask them like any like type of advice. That's what it seemed like, So and that's fine. If that's how they do things, that's how they do things. I wasn't complaining about it, but it was more about at AEW, like they actually took the time. Like Billy Gunn came up and talked to me for 10 minutes after the match and discussed, this is what you need to work on. You're a big guy, so everything you do, people are going to notice more. It's like you did well. But there's certain things that you need to do better. And I really appreciated that. And Bear Bronson told me, he after Billy Gunn talked to us, Bear Bronson came up to me and was just, was like, hey, honestly, that was a really good review from Billy, because he's like, a lot of times Billy will just tell everyone they suck. He's like, and he's a perfectionist, so he wants everyone to be really like good. Because obviously the time he came up in wrestling, was some of the best guys he's seen in the ring. So he's like, for him to say that wasn't bad means that was like pretty freaking good. So I did appreciate getting good, honest feedback from him.
Yeah, man, I would take that as a positive. Like, well, he didn't say that I was terrible, so
yeah. He's like, yeah, it was all right, it was good, it was solid. So I'm like, okay, I'll take it.
I'll take that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. I wanted to ask another thing that I noticed. Your relationship, your like partnership, your manager, Brandon Walker of Barstool Sports. Like, how did that come about? Because Barstool Sports,
it's funny because it's not a real like in-depth story. It was just on Twitter one day. I was just literally on Twitter, and I guess on radio somebody quoted him saying, Big Cat asked him, if you were to do anything else besides work here, what would you want to do? Like, what was your dream job? And, he said, I always wanted to be a professional wrestler or a professional wrestling manager. So I just replied to him, like, you can manage me. And he said, just said, go on. And I just explained to him and I talked to him. And then he said, all right, yeah, let's do it. So, we started doing some stuff. He invited me up to HQ a few times, and that was really cool. I grew up a Barstool fan. I'm from the Northeast, so I'm from Rhode Island. We're obviously Barstool starting in Boston, Mass. So I've always followed Barstool, from the beginning, the early days. Then when they got acquired, just always have been a fan of it. So it was pretty surreal going up there and meeting some of the guys, being on the radio, being on a podcast. We got to do the OVW thing together. Brandon's been great. Brandon's really busy. I talked to him recently. We're going to start some stuff back up in 2022. College football obviously takes precedent over wrestling, especially at Barstool. So he needs to, take the time to do that, and that's okay. And I told him, hey, the ball's in your court. If you want to do more, I'd love to. And he's looking to, he really wants to get back into it once the new year starts. So, so definitely, be on the lookout. We will definitely be linking up again, and well, hopefully we can do a couple more things starting in the new year.
Yeah, man, that's really cool. Like you say, they're an established, such like a well-known brand or platform.
Very much so. Yeah.
To have that
Yeah.
in your back pocket, it might not happen, but to have that as something that you could maybe pull out just randomly one day, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that can really help because they got such a large following, and Brandon's doing a great job trying to spotlight AEW and WWE a little bit more. So it only can be a positive linking up with them. I don't see any negatives, especially with wrestling. So I well, hopefully we can do more, and if not, it was a great experience. But I think there's more on the horizon.
Awesome. I know. I'll keep an eye out for that. I really will. I'll keep an eye out for that. Definitely. Everybody should. Big fan of Barstool. I'm not a big fan of like college football and things like that. It's hard to keep track of things like that in the UK. It's not
I
really.
bet. Yeah. I have a hard time. I didn't grow up a college football fan just because we didn't really have a team in the Northeast. It's mostly professional sports around here that people care about. So, but I'm actually moving to Atlanta in March, and I guess I got to be a Georgia Bulldogs fan now. So and then it just so happens they're the best team in the country this year, I guess, which I've heard. So looks like I'm just jump on the bandwagon when it's hot.
No idea. No idea.
I don't, I really don't either. I just heard that they're the best team. Everyone's like, yeah, I think they're just going to win. I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm a fan now.
When you said Baltimore earlier, I was like, the Baltimore Ravens, and I was like, yeah. Great, I know American sports now.
Yeah.
That's it. New England Patriots. Like I know.
That's my team. Oh yeah, I'm all Boston sports. I'm a big Boston sports fan.
Yeah, I know names. I know like a few athletes' names, but it's just not a big deal over here. Like for us, it's football or soccer, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
That's it really. Yeah, rugby.
Are you a soccer fan?
Oh, big time. Yeah, it's
okay.
Soccer and wrestling are like neck and neck.
Okay. I don't like to assume because I have met a few individuals from England who said like, everyone thinks I'm a soccer fan, but I'm not. Who's your team?
So my team, not a lot of people would have heard of Coventry City.
I've heard of them. I used to play the video game all the time, so I know. I definitely know all of them. Yeah, I've heard of them. I couldn't tell you a player, but I know of them.
We were one of the founding members of the Premier League, so back then we were not a big deal, but sort of a big deal. We've won the FA Cup. We're in the division now, so we're still we're one of those teams that's never going to make waves, But I think the fans are fine with that. Like, if we get a little bit of success, it's like, yeah, great, yeah, we'll take that.
Yeah, no, I mean that's great though. You're a fan of a team like that, and you're not just jumping on the
local team,
the Liverpool or the Arsenal bandwagon.
Yeah, it's where I was born and bred. I know.
I became a big fan of soccer when I went to a prep school. I went to Worcester Academy, and I became a huge fan because we had a really good soccer team and a couple guys from England, a couple guys from overseas, and whenever I'd be in like the common area, because I was boarding, when I was in the common area, they'd always have soccer on, and I did because I hate to say it, but I became a fan of Man U. because I really always liked playing I always liked playing. I know, I get that all the time, because I always loved playing FIFA and I loved Wayne Rooney, so I always played as him.
Okay.
And I wanted to, and I saw him like, who does he play for? Because I started playing the FIFA or the one that was only the World Cup edition, so I always played as England. I just liked England. So I was like, who does this guy play for? He's the best. And they said Man U, so I guess I like them. And that was the year like 2008 when they had all the guys like Ronaldo and go down the line of every single guy they had, Carrick and so yeah, no, that was my favorite team. I don't keep up with it as much as I used to, but I used to really be all in on Man U.
Well, at least you're honest. At least you're honest about like why you're not pretending to be like a die-hard Man United fan. Like
no, I can't say that. I was diehard for about a year or two. Yeah, and then I think they won that year. I think they beat Chelsea in the Champions League. I think that was the year.
When was that the year when John Terry slipped?
Yes, John Terry missed the
Yeah. Oh man, 2000.
Yeah. Was it? He missed the PK. Was that it?
Yeah. Slipped
Yeah.
because it was a slightly wet pitch and it just flew off.
Yeah, that was the year. Yeah.
I can't even think what year that was now. Man, you know what?
I think it was 07. I think it was 06, 07, I think.
I was going to say 08. I don't know why. 08.
Either that. It was 07 or 08.
Around there. Yeah.
I remember watching it.
I tell you what, it's nice to speak to an American about UK sports, like British sports. It's very rare that I get to do that. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, I know. I'm pretty cool. No, you got it. No worries.
Anytime I get to talk about football or soccer on this,
I'm pretty well rounded, as you learn, Chris. I know a little. I know a little about a lot, not a lot about a little. We'll say that.
Jack of all trades. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome, man. Right, I want to end with the same question that I ask everybody. First of all, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I've had a genuine, just a good time talking to you, man. You're very easy to talk to, very easy to just shoot the breeze and have a bit of a laugh with. So I really appreciate you giving me your time today, first of all. And as I say, I like to end on the same. It's a segment that I do every single time on this Indie Wrestling Spotlight called Putting Yourself Over. So I want to give you a few minutes, basically just to tell us why we should be fans of Ben Bishop, what you've got coming up, especially coming up in the new year, going into 2022, now that everything's sort of getting back to normal a bit post-COVID and post-pandemic and post-lockdown. So just sell yourself, man, to any viewers, any listeners that might not know you.
Best way for me to sell myself, and it's hard, Chris, because I'm not standing up and I'm just in this tiny little like 3x3 screen right here. But listen, folks, if you're a fan of wrestling, especially 80s and 90s wrestling, if you ever watched wrestling and you ever said, look at these guys larger than life, whether it be personality, whether it be size, and you come to the right place. Old BT Double B Earthquake and Pillars Shaking, leader of the Meat Pop Express, the man who stands at 6'12" and weighs in at 15% of a metric ton. The dude with the shades, I don't have them on me, but the sun has never set on a cool guy, and it sure as hell has never set on me. And the guy, I ain't corporate, but I'm always all about the business. Coming up, bunch of shows coming up. I got a ton of shows. Martinsburg, West Virginia with Voltage Wrestling, PWX, McKeesport. I am actually wrestling, and I haven't announced it yet, but I will be wrestling the MLW champion, Alex Hammerstone, on that show in McKeesport, December 11th. Really excited about that. Follow Adrenaline Championship Wrestling. It is my home fed. We can call it that, out of Maryland. It is, we got some great talent there, and I'm on all those shows, and we're running out of Hagerstown, Hanover, Pasadena, Maryland, and you don't want to miss it. Believe me, folks, I know it, you know it, everyone knows it. We want to make big guys great again in wrestling, and that's what I'm here for. And I'm going to make big men great again in wrestling, and you're going to believe that. If you're not going to believe it, you better just deal with it, because it's going to happen. So you better get ready, because here comes trouble.
Very nice, man. Very nice. I've definitely bought in 100%. You should make that your bio, by the way. Make big guys great again.
Yeah, right.
That's a great tagline. That's a great motto.
Yeah. I think I might.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Ben, like I said, and I've said it again. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Big fan. I hope there are big things on the horizon for you. You've got loads of really cool stuff coming up soon. I'm looking forward to it. I hope everybody who has watched this and listened to this is looking forward to it as well. Guys, thank you for doing that. You know where to find me. Please hit the subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube. Please hit the follow button if you are listening to this on any audio platforms. And I will hope to see you next time on the It's My Wrestling Podcast Indie Wrestling Spotlight.